Has put Afghanistan at the center of his foreign policy agenda, recently announcing an increase in troops to defeat Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. For more on this story, we can cross over to RT's Washington correspondent Dina Gusowski. Hello to you, Dina. So what can you tell us?
Well, July actually marks the deadliest month for U.S. troops in Afghanistan since 2001. The insurgents, they're really using more sophisticated weaponry, and of course those numbers reflect the fact that there's an ongoing offensive in the Helmand province. So the Obama administration really trying to figure out how to conduct this war. Is it going to be all about intelligence gathering, or are they going to keep stepping up the offensives and the counterinsurgency operations? That's pretty much what almost every department of government, especially ones that deal with foreign policy, are mulling over right now. But not everyone is thinking about that. Other Americans are questioning why the United States is in Afghanistan in the first place. One of those people, Jeff Millard, he's the former D.C. president of the Iraq Veterans Against the War. Thank you so much for being here today. This is an organization, I believe, of military families and people in the military who joined after 9/11 who are now opposed to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So obviously you're one of the people who's opposed to that war.
It's service members who've served since September 11th. A lot of us joined before September 11th but have served since September 11th. Most of us have served either in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Right. So obviously you're against the war. But politicians across the board, Democrats, Republicans, foreign policy experts, they've kind of dubbed Afghanistan the good war, saying that it should have been Afghanistan, not Iraq, that the U.S. has been fighting for so long. So here, the American people elected Barack Obama. The savior comes to office. He's escalating the war in Afghanistan. So what's the problem?
Well, the biggest problem is that it's really just as much an illegal and immoral war as Iraq was. We can't ignore the fact that it's not a legal war. There is no UN resolution that allowed us to go into Afghanistan. There is no pretext for it. It doesn't fit any of the criteria for the just war theory. And the fact of the matter is that when you're seeing post-September 11th, that heightened emotional state of the American people, that heightened emotional state, that fear, was really used by the Bush administration to go after Afghanistan and then Iraq, much in the same way. If you look at it, we didn't go in tactically to go after the people who actually committed the acts of September 11th.
But wasn't the U.S. going there to liberate the people of Iraq, and now they have to liberate the people of Afghanistan, no?
Actually, not whatsoever. If you look at the original arguments for war, liberation of the people wasn't among any of those arguments. They wanted, originally, they used the fear and the emotion created by the attacks of September 11th in order to manipulate the American people into war. And they didn't follow the law. They didn't go and put a UN resolution stating that they wanted to invade Afghanistan and what would be done. No, instead, they went broad-ranging and went in and started bombing. The fact is that we could have actually gone in tactically with an international coalition, gotten Osama bin Laden, and put him underneath an international court. That didn't happen. Instead, we go and we start bombing other countries, we start having civilian deaths, and this doesn't lead to a better future. One of the criteria for a just war theory is that you have to eliminate more evil than you bring into the world. And let's be clear and honest that the war in Afghanistan has brought more evil into the world than it's taken out.
But how can you continue arguing that point in light of what just recently happened in Jakarta? Because people who argue for the war say, look, this is not just an American problem. This is happening all over the world. These suicide bombings, these terrorist attacks. So how do you kind of counter that?
Well, the biggest counter for it is that war does not work when trying to counter terrorism.
What does?
Well, the fact of the matter is, if you look at, let's say, domestic terrorism in the United States and what's worked to curb domestic terrorism, let's take a look at, say, the Oklahoma City bombing. We had an investigation by the FBI. We found out who was responsible. They went on trial in front of a jury of their peers, was convicted, and sentenced. We're not seeing that when it comes to foreign-born terrorists. We're seeing that with domestic terrorists, but not foreign-born terrorists. Instead, we want to go to war, we start bombing civilians, and all that does is create more people who hate the United States. I have news for those people out there who think that people hate the United States because of our freedoms.
There's people who hate the United States?
There are. There are a lot. And they don't hate us because of our freedoms. The fact is...
So why do they hate the U.S.?
They hate the U.S. because we meddle in foreign affairs. The fact is that we're out bombing other countries instead of going through and actually helping other countries. If you look at the tsunami that happened a few years ago, and you look at our foreign approval ratings after that, they went up quite a bit. Why? Because we gave
So are you saying that there should be a
aid.
tsunami in Afghanistan, then maybe our approval
I'm
ratings?
saying that instead of using bombs and warfare to go after these things, we should be using tactical teams to go in, treat it like a crime, investigate, bring these people to justice. Instead of going out just to kill them, bring them to justice. Let's put them in front of an international court. Let's have a trial with facts, allow them a fair chance at a hearing, and let's find out what happened, and let's get justice out of this and not revenge.
Some people say that intelligence isn't enough, and the cost of failing in Afghanistan is just too great. They're going to go back to stoning women, raping little boys. So, your argument is interesting, but there are those who say this just cannot be a state that fails again. But thank you for being here. I'm going to wrap it up. Back to you in the studios of Moscow. Definitely an interesting debate here when it comes to the issue of Afghanistan.
Our correspondent in Washington, Gina Gosolsky, thank you very much for this.